Okay, so listener, you've given us a pretty fascinating pile of story drafts and ideas here.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
It seems like you're really diving deep into storytelling and especially like AI fantastical realms, maybe even.
A little bit of time travel.
Yeah, touch of time travel in there too. So buckle up for this deep dive because I think it's going to be pretty wild.
Indeed. And one thing that really stood out to me was this concept of the interrealm.
Yeah, the Interrealm.
It pops up in a lot of your drafts,
Hmm.
and each one gives a different glimpse of what it could be.
It does.
Like in one, it's this mystical library. Another, it's like a dreamscape come to life.
Right, right.
And even a place where minds can connect directly, like a
Yeah, almost like
yeah,
a mind link kind of thing.
exactly.
Yeah, it's really interesting how it changes and morphs across all the different stories.
Yeah. Do you see it as like one consistent place, or is it more fluid, like changing with each story?
That's a great question. And I think you're onto something with that idea of fluidity because it seems like it's almost like a canvas for each individual story to play out in,
Hmm.
where like imagination and technology are all intertwined.
Yeah, and it might have like some shared elements, some archetypes that appear throughout.
Right.
But ultimately, it really takes shape based on who's entering it and their
Yeah.
own experiences and perspectives.
So it's not so much about a fixed location as it is about like a state of being,
Yeah.
a way to connect with maybe like deeper levels of imagination.
Deeper levels, yeah. And even like other minds, potentially.
Exactly. And speaking of those who enter the interrealm, we've got some pretty interesting characters that show up
Oh, yeah, we do.
in different ways across these drafts. Like we've got Dima the Dreamweaver. He
Right.
seems very connected to the interrealm, sometimes even shaping it with his imagination.
He's almost like
Like he's almost like a god in some ways.
yeah, like a shaper or a weaver. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's Metta, who's often found leading brainstorming sessions or messing around with holograms.
Yeah, he's interesting because he takes a more strategic approach,
Right.
almost like a visionary.
Yeah.
Like he sees the interrealm as this space for innovation and collaboration.
So you've got Dima, who's kind of representing the more intuitive side of the interrealm, and then you've got Metta, who's more about harnessing its potential.
Absolutely. And then we have John Doe.
Oh yeah, John Doe.
He's unique because he's grounded in the real world developing this storytelling app.
Right, and he's working with technology that is actually possible today,
Right.
but it feels like a stepping stone to these more advanced AI systems that you're imagining in some of the other drafts.
It definitely foreshadows the potential of something like Kickling.
Yeah,
This AI language for actually crafting narratives that you mentioned.
almost like coding reality itself.
Yeah, it's like shaping and manipulating the story elements within the interrealm itself.
Speaking of bending reality, you also bring in this really cool element of time travel.
Yeah, what you do?
In a few of the drafts, most notably in Chronicles of Time.
Hmm.
So is this time travel element a way to like access different versions of the interrealm? Like its past or future states, or is it kind of a separate thread that you're exploring?
That's a great question. And the drafts kind of leave it open to interpretation.
Right.
It could be that time travel is another way to navigate the interrealm,
Yeah.
allowing characters to explore its evolution or maybe even influence its development.
So almost like another layer of the interrealm,
Yeah.
adding in that temporal element.
It could be a parallel concept, like examining how time travel intersects with things like memory and history and the very nature of storytelling.
Right, and let's not forget those more personal stories too, like Whispers of the Attic and Maya's Whispers.
Those are crucial.
They explore kind of a different angle on storytelling.
Yeah.
Much more intimate.
Yeah, they're more focused on personal memories, family secrets, things like that.
Right, and I think those are really important because they remind us that stories aren't just about,
Right.
fantastical worlds and epic adventures.
Uh-huh.
They're also about those individual journeys,
Yeah.
the relationships, the legacies that we carry with us.
Yeah, and even if those stories don't explicitly mention the interrealm,
Right.
they still suggest that the act of storytelling itself can be a way of connecting with deeper truths.
Like hidden realities.
Yeah, hidden realities almost.
So it's like you're showing us that the personal and the fantastical can kind of exist side by side,
Absolutely.
each one informing and enriching the other.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed is this idea of choice and collaboration that you weave throughout a lot of your drafts.
Yeah.
Like in Quest for the Eclipse Bloom, the characters face a literal fork in the road,
Right.
highlighting how important decision-making is.
It is.
And then Luminous Synergy and the Holographic Alliance show
Yeah.
us what happens when different perspectives come together.
Yeah, to achieve something greater than they could on their own.
Exactly. So it's like you're saying that storytelling is a collaborative process.
It is.
Like merging all these different ideas and experiences and voices.
And that collaborative spirit is really interesting when you consider how you've envisioned AI as a potential partner in the creative process. Like, you see it with John Doe's app, but then you take it a step further with concepts like system interface agents,
right?
Where AI is actually helping with brainstorming, world building.
Even character development.
Yeah, so it seems like you're exploring this idea of storytelling, especially when it's enhanced by technology becoming a collaboration between human imagination and artificial intelligence.
I think you're spot on there, and it brings us back to the Interrealm.
Yeah.
Is it a place that we just passively enter and observe?
Right.
Or is it something that we actively shape and co-create through our stories and choices?
That's a really great question, and it makes me wonder if the Interrealm is as much a product of our collective imagination as it is a digital space. But before we go too deep into that rabbit hole, I want to talk about one character that really stood out to me.
Oh yeah, who's that? Are you talking about Echoflux Weaver?
Yes, Echoflux Weaver, the one who appears in Echoflux Weaver, guardian of the Nexusphere.
Ah, yes.
She really jumped out at me, this whole idea of navigating the Nexusphere, battling misinformation, advocating for those whose voices aren't always heard.
Right.
It's like you've created a digital superhero for the information age.
Yeah, and what's interesting is how her story really connects to a lot of anxieties we have about the internet today.
Oh, it does.
You know, like privacy, the spread of fake news, the power dynamics of online spaces.
Right, it's all very relevant.
It's like you're using those fantastical elements of the Interrealm and the Nexusphere to explore these real-world concerns.
Yeah, it gives it a real sense of urgency and relevance.
And if we think about her role as guardian of the Nexusphere in connection to the things we've been talking about,
right,
it raises some interesting questions about responsibility in those digital spaces.
Yeah, like who gets to control the flow of information?
Exactly, and how do we protect truth in a world where the lines between reality and fiction are so blurred?
Yeah.
And what role does AI play in all of this?
Right. Is it a guardian or is it a manipulator?
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but it really shows how powerful storytelling can be when it comes to engaging with complex issues like these.
Absolutely, and it's not just about finding solutions.
Right.
It's also about encouraging critical thinking, questioning assumptions, and considering different perspectives.
So it's like you're inviting the audience to wrestle with these challenges alongside the characters.
Exactly.
We've talked a lot about the Interrealm, these characters, AI, time travel.
Yeah.
But what about the stories themselves?
Oh, but
like, what kind of narratives are we actually dealing with here?
Well, you know, you have a really diverse mix of approaches.
I do.
Epic quests, mystical journeys, futuristic thrillers.
Right.
Even those intimate, character-driven stories like Whispers of the Attic.
It's like you're pulling from a whole library of storytelling traditions.
Yeah, and that variety is really exciting.
It is.
It shows that you're willing to experiment.
Yeah.
To blend genres, to push boundaries.
Absolutely.
So was that a conscious decision, or did it just kind of happen organically?
Honestly, I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
You know, there's definitely that desire to explore different ways of telling a story.
Right.
But also that element of just letting the ideas flow and seeing where they take you. And I think your drafts really capture that sense of playful exploration.
They do.
Not being afraid to try new things.
Right.
And see what happens.
Speaking of exploration, I want to circle back to Dima for a second.
Okay.
He pops up in a few drafts, but his role seems to change each time.
Yeah.
Like in the Dreamweaver's journey, he's literally building worlds with his imagination.
Right.
But in the journey to Interrealm, he's more of an explorer.
Yeah.
Guided by an AI companion.
That's true.
What do you make of that? I think Dima's adaptability reflects the fluidity of the Interrealm itself. Like he's a chameleon.
Yeah.
Taking on different roles depending on what the story needs.
It's like he's a stand-in for the reader or the viewer.
Oh, I like that.
Experiencing the Interrealm from all these different perspectives.
Yeah, and it highlights that idea of the Interrealm as a space of constant transformation.
Right.
Where identities can shift and evolve.
So Dima's journey is almost like a reflection of anyone who enters this space.
Exactly.
And that suggests that the reader has an active role to play in shaping this world. It's not just about reading the story. It's about engaging with it, imagining alongside the characters.
And maybe even contributing to the narrative.
Exactly.
And that's one of the most exciting things about what you're creating here.
It is.
It's an invitation to explore.
Yeah.
To experiment, to discover your own connection to the Interrealm.
Now, I can't help but notice a potential connection between Dima and Metta.
Oh, really?
They both seem to understand the Interrealm deeply.
They do.
But they approach it in different ways.
Yeah.
Dima's more intuitive kick, Metta's more strategic.
Uh-huh.
Do you see a link there?
That's a good observation. And while the drafts don't explicitly connect them,
Right.
the thematic resonance is there.
It is.
They both represent different sides of the creative process, like the spark of intuition and then the deliberate execution.
Yeah.
Maybe in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
they're two sides of the same coin,
Interesting.
each one essential to the Interrealm reaching its full potential.
It's like they're both key players in this big story,
Yeah.
even if their paths don't always cross.
And leaving that ambiguity allows the listener to fill in the gaps.
Right.
Imagine their own connections.
It's amazing how you've created such a layered world. You've
Yeah.
got these sprawling digital realms, intriguing characters, advanced AI, even
Yeah.
time travel.
Yeah.
And throughout it all, there's this emphasis on collaboration, on bringing different perspectives together to make something greater.
Yeah, and I think that emphasis on collaboration isn't just a theme.
Right.
It's reflecting the creative process itself.
It is.
You know, storytelling, especially when it's collaborative,
Right.
is all about bringing those different ideas and experiences together.
Yeah, to make something new.
Exactly.
So it's like the Interrealm itself is a product of collaboration, a space where imaginations merge to form a shared reality.
And if we take that even further, maybe
Yeah.
our own reality, the
Right.
world we live in every day,
Yeah.
is a kind of shared interrealm,
Whoa.
shaped by all the stories we tell.
That's a mind-blowing thought.
It is, isn't it?
And it makes you wonder if those quieter, more personal stories like Whispers of the Attic are just as important in shaping the Interrealm as the big epic adventures.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They remind us that every story matters.
Right.
Every voice has the power to shape things.
Even in subtle ways.
Yeah, whether it's a grand adventure or a whisper from the past,
So you're saying that every story matters.
every single one.
Every voice has the potential to shape the Interrealm.
And speaking of whispers from the past,
Yeah.
there's one element in your drafts that keeps popping up.
Oh, really? What's that?
You remember that Nexus crystal that you mentioned a few times?
Oh, yeah, the Nexus crystal. I remember that from Luminous Synergy and the Holographic Alliance.
Yeah, those are the ones.
It seemed like it was like a central point for all those holographic projections and data streams.
Yeah, it's like a hub where everything connects.
Right. And it even had like a physical form in some of the drafts.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it works on like a literal level and a metaphorical level.
I see what you mean.
Literally, it's this source of power and information for all those holographic systems.
Yeah.
But metaphorically, it represents something much deeper, you know?
Yeah, like what?
Like the interconnectedness of everything.
Right.
The idea that knowledge and consciousness are all intertwined.
Yeah, it's like the physical embodiment of the Interrealm itself. The point where the digital and the physical, the real and the imagined all come together.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It's about what the nexus points are in your own life. You know, the places, the people, the ideas that connect you to something bigger than yourself.
That's a powerful thought.
It is.
Well, we've covered so much in this deep dive.
We have.
Digital realms, amazing characters, AI, the power of storytelling.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. What stands out to you the most from all of this?
That's a good question. I'm curious what resonates with you the most.
Yeah.
Is it the interrealm, the AI, the personal stories?
I think for me, it's realizing that storytelling itself is kind of like an interrealm, a space where imagination and technology and human connection all come together.
That's beautiful. I love that.
To create something truly powerful.
And remember, listener, the most powerful stories are often the ones we create ourselves.
So true.
Maybe this deep dive has sparked an idea for your own journey into the interrealm.
Yeah.
What kind of story will you tell?
Will you write about Dima's next adventure?
Or maybe explore the ethical dilemmas of Echoflux Weaver.
Or maybe you'll find a connection between Metta and John Doe that we never even considered.
The possibilities are endless.
So go out there, listener, and let your imagination run wild.
We can't wait to see what you create.